The following story is a translated and adapted conversation, recounting supernatural experiences from around the world. This content is intended for entertainment purposes only. Listen with an open mind and enjoy the thrill of the unknown. The content in this video is purely for entertainment. Viewer discretion is advised. If you are easily frightened, be prepared some stories might just send chills down your spine. If you're ready, turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and immerse yourself in the world of the unexplained. Callejón del Beso, the Alley of the Kiss. In the heart of Guanajuato, Mexico, nestled between colorful colonial buildings, lies a narrow alleyway so narrow that two people standing on opposite balconies could almost touch lips. This alley, known as El Callejón del Beso, the Alley of the Kiss, is not just a romantic landmark, it is a place haunted by tragedy. The lover's doom. Long ago, Anna, the beautiful daughter of a wealthy nobleman, lived in a house overlooking this alley. Her father, cold and ruthless, had already arranged for her to marry a rich old man, a man she despised. But Anna had already given her heart to Carlos, a humble miner. The lovers met in secret, exchanging whispers of love beneath the moonlight. Desperate to be close to her, Carlos rented the house directly across from Anna's, his balcony just inches from hers. Every night, they would lean across the alley and steal a kiss, their fingers intertwined across the abyss of space that separated them. One fateful evening, Anna's father discovered their secret. Consumed by rage, he stormed into Anna's room, his face red with fury, his knife glinting in the candlelight. Carlos reached out, trying to pull Anna into his arms, but before he could, the knife plunged into Anna's chest. Her blood splattered onto the cold stone balcony. Her fingers, still entwined with Carlos's, went limp. Carlos held her lifeless hand as tears mixed with blood. Then, in despair, he threw himself from the balcony, his body crashing onto the alley below. Their love had ended in tragedy. And the alley had absorbed their sorrow forever. A curse on the lovers. Since that night, strange occurrences have been reported. Unseen whispers echo through the alley at night. Some claim to see a shadowy figure standing on Anna's balcony, staring with hollow eyes. Others have felt a cold hand brush against their skin, even when alone. But the most terrifying legend warns of a curse. If a couple walks through the alley and does not share a kiss on the third step, misfortune nor even death will follow them. Many skeptics have laughed at the tale, but those who ignored the warning have met horrifying fates: sudden car accidents, mysterious disappearances, and even unexplained deaths. Is it just a coincidence, or is Anna's spirit still watching, punishing those who dare to walk her alley without love? El Charro Negro, the Dark Rider's Bargain. The roads of Mexico are long, winding, and often empty at night. But sometimes, travelers are not alone. Sometimes, the silence is broken by the distant echo of hooves. The sound grows closer, but no rider is seen. Then, from the darkness, he appears, a figure clad in black charro attire, riding a massive jet-black stallion with burning red eyes. This is El Charro Negro, the cursed rider who tempts lost souls into selling their very essence. A fatal encounter. Many who cross his path have vanished or met terrible fates, their last moments whispered in terrified voices. One such story comes from a young traveler named Miguel, who was walking home late one evening. The night was still, the moon shrouded in clouds. The only sound was the crunch of gravel under Miguel's feet until he heard the hoofbeats. They came from behind him. Slow, steady. Miguel turned, expecting a fellow traveler, but instead, he saw him, El Charro Negro. His sombrero hid most of his face, but beneath the brim, Miguel could see glowing red eyes peering at him. The horse snorted, exhaling a plume of black mist. "You seem troubled, amigo," the rider said, his voice smooth but hollow, as if spoken from the depths of the abyss. Miguel felt a chill run down his spine. His instinct screamed at him to run, but his feet refused to move. "Are you lost, perhaps? You need a ride." The horse took a step forward, and the ground beneath it blackened like scorched earth. Miguel could smell sulfur. "No, thank you," he stammered, stepping back. El Charro chuckled. "Are you sure? I can take you anywhere for a price." Then Miguel saw the bag hanging from El Charro's saddle. It moved, twitched, and from within, a ghastly moan emerged. Miguel's blood ran cold. Those weren't coins inside the bag. They were souls. The young man turned and ran. Behind him, the hoofbeats quickened. The wind howled as Miguel sprinted, the air turning thick and heavy, as if trying to pull him back. His lungs burned, but he didn't dare stop. He could feel El Charro's shadow stretching toward him, the cold presence of death at his heels. Then a church bell rang in the distance. A sudden, agonizing screech filled the air. The hooves skidded to a halt. Miguel turned just in time to see El Charro's form dissolve into black mist, vanishing into the night. He had escaped, but just barely. A deal with the devil. El Charro Negro is more than a legend. Some say he was once a wealthy man, consumed by greed, who struck a deal with the devil. In exchange for his soul, he gained fortune, power, and an immortal steed. But when death came for him, the devil twisted the bargain. Instead of resting in peace, he was cursed to wander the roads forever, searching for others to take his place, luring the desperate into his grasp. Many travelers still report seeing him. Some claim he asks for directions, offering gold in return. Others say he appears when someone is at their lowest, offering one last deal. But those who accept are never seen again. El Conejo de la Luna, the cursed rabbit of the moon. The full moon hung high in the sky, its glow spilling across the darkened forests of Japan. The ancient Mayan legend of El Conejo de la Luna, the rabbit of the moon, was never meant to cross oceans, never meant to haunt land so far from its origin. Yet, some whisper that on nights of the brightest moon, a shadow moves across its surface, shifting, twitching, watching. Those who stare too long at it go mad. The Mayan legend of the rabbit of the moon. Long ago, when the gods still walked the earth, the great deity Quetzalcoatl wandered in human form, traveling the lands as a mortal. One evening, after walking for hours under the scorching sun, he collapsed from exhaustion. His throat burned with thirst, his body weak. As he lay there, awaiting death, a small rabbit approached him. The creature, seeing the god suffering, offered itself as food, saying, "If you are hungry, eat me. My life is small, but it is yours." Moved by such selflessness, Quetzalcoatl refused. Instead, he lifted the rabbit high into the sky, pressing its image onto the glowing moon as a reminder of its kindness. "From now on, all who look upon the moon shall see you, and your sacrifice shall never be forgotten." And so, the rabbit of the moon became a symbol of compassion and eternal remembrance. But legends do not always stay pure. The cursed moon rabbit of Japan. In Japan, the image of the moon rabbit, or Tsukuyomi no Usagi, has long been a familiar sight. But in some rural villages, elders tell a darker version of the tale, one not of kindness, but of hunger, madness, and an insatiable thirst for blood. It is said that when the moon is at its fullest, travelers who stare too long at its surface may see the rabbit begin to move not as a gentle creature, but as a twisted, writhing beast. It shifts unnaturally, its ears stretching, its mouth splitting open wider than it should be. It watches, its dark hollow eyes fixating on those who dare to meet its gaze, and then it descends. In remote mountain villages, there are stories of people disappearing on full moon nights, the only trace left behind. Scattered footprints that start normal but become those of a rabbit, leading into the endless dark. Some who have survived these encounters claim to have heard whispers in the wind, a voice calling out, asking, "Are you hungry? Are you ready to join me on the moon?" Those who answer are never seen again. A legend that spreads like a plague, the legend of the cursed moon rabbit was once thought to be contained to the old villages, whispered only by the elderly. But in recent years, urban legends have begun to spread. In Tokyo, a security guard at a skyscraper claimed to see a shadowy rabbit-shaped figure moving across the moon, even when no one else could. The next morning, he was found dead on the rooftop, his body strangely light, as if drained of all weight. A university student in Kyoto reportedly obsessed over the story, staring at the moon for hours, sketching disturbing images of a grotesque rabbit with endless teeth. One night, he was heard screaming in his dorm, clawing at his face. When his friends broke in, he was gone, the only clue left behind being his blood-stained sketchbook still open on his desk. A child in Osaka, upon hearing the tale, simply asked her mother, "Why do you all say the rabbit is on the moon?" "He's been standing outside my window all night." The mother turned to look. And there was nothing there, or so she thought. El Fantasma del Metro, the haunted subway of Mexico City. Mexico City's metro system is one of the largest and busiest in the world, transporting millions of people every day. But beneath the concrete and steel, in the dark tunnels and abandoned stations, something lurks, a ghostly presence that terrifies both passengers and workers alike. This is the legend of El Fantasma del Metro, the spirit that haunts the underground passages of Mexico's capital. The first sightings, a tragedy never forgotten. The origins of the subway ghost date back to a horrific accident that took place many years ago. Some say it was a man pushed onto the tracks, his body crushed beneath the train. Others whisper about a woman in white, a desperate soul who jumped to her death, forever trapped between life and death. Regardless of which version you believe, one thing is certain: something unnatural remains in the tunnels. Metro workers were the first to experience strange phenomena. During late-night shifts, as they patrolled the dark, empty platforms, they would hear whispers echoing through the tunnels. "Ayadame, help me." Some claimed to see a shadowy figure standing at the edge of the platform, staring at the tracks below. But when they turned to look again, the figure was gone. Encounters with the subway ghost. Passengers have reported chilling experiences in several stations, particularly in the Pantitlán, Pino Suárez, and Bellas Artes stops. One terrifying encounter happened to a train conductor working the late shift. As he guided his train through an empty tunnel, he suddenly saw a woman in white walking along the tracks. Slamming the brakes, he stopped the train just in time. But when he got out to help her, there was no one there. The tunnel was silent, the air freezing cold. When he checked the train's security cameras, they showed a blurry figure standing in the darkness, but no human was ever found. The legend continues. To this day, workers and passengers alike refuse to stay alone in certain stations after midnight. Security guards claim to see ghostly figures standing near the tracks, only to disappear into the shadows. Some believe that El Fantasma del Metro is not just one ghost, but many lost souls, victims of accidents, murders, and tragedies that have occurred deep within the subway system. And if you ever take the last train home, listen carefully. Because if you hear someone whispering your name from the darkness, you may not be alone. El Hombre Coyote, the shadow of the desert. The legend of El Hombre Coyote has haunted the deserts and mountains of Mexico for centuries. Unlike the European werewolf, this creature is not a man cursed by the moon, but a being that willingly embraced the darkness, selling its soul to the spirits of the wild in exchange for power. Origins of the curse. Stories say that El Hombre Coyote was once a man, a lone traveler, or a desperate warrior who sought the help of ancient gods or dark shamans. Some say he was a criminal, running from justice, while others claim he was a man betrayed by his own people. One thing remains the same in every version of the tale: he made a blood pact with the spirit of the coyote. Under the cold, silver light of the full moon, he shed his human form, his bones twisted, his skin stretched, and his cries turned into eerie howls. He became something in between a beast with the cunning of a man and the hunger of a predator. Encounters in the past. In old villages, elders speak of El Hombre Coyote attacking lone travelers at night. Farmers tell stories of livestock torn apart, their remains scattered as if played with rather than eaten. The few who claimed to have survived an encounter said they heard its chilling howls long before they saw its glowing eyes in the dark. One tale, often whispered among the locals, speaks of a group of hunters who set out to kill the creature. Only one returned, his mind shattered, his face frozen in terror. He could only mutter, "Los ojos esos ojos," the eyes, those eyes. He died the next night, his body found with deep claw marks inside his locked house. Modern sightings. Even today, people report strange encounters in the remote areas of Mexico. Hikers speak of something following them, its heavy breathing just outside their campfires glow. Highway patrol officers have seen a tall, canine-like figure standing on two legs by the road, disappearing the moment they blink. The most terrifying reports come from truck drivers traveling alone at night. Some say they saw a creature running beside their vehicle at impossible speeds, its yellow eyes staring through the window, despite them going over 100 kilometers per hour. And those who stop to investigate, they are never seen again. La Llorona Prehispánica, the wailing woman of the ancient world. Long before the Spanish arrived in Mexico, before the conquistadors set foot on Aztec land, the ghostly cries of a woman echoed through the lakes and temples of Tenochtitlan. The indigenous people of the time whispered of a spirit, a mother whose sorrow transcended death itself, the first La Llorona. A dark omen before the fall, the Mexica people, rulers of the mighty Aztec Empire, believed in omens. One of the most terrifying was the weeping woman, a spectral figure that appeared near the canals and temples, wailing in agony. Mis hijos, adon los llevaré. Oh, my children, where shall I take you? This was no ordinary ghost. She was seen before great tragedies, her sorrowful cries filling the night air. Some believed she was Cihuacotl, an ancient goddess of motherhood and war, mourning the destruction that would soon come. Others whispered that she was the spirit of a woman who had sacrificed her children to the gods, doomed to wander the world forever. Her wails were a warning. Not long after, the Spanish arrived. Encounters with the pre-Hispanic Llorona. Before the fall of the Aztec Empire, warriors claimed to have seen her wandering the causeways of Tenochtitlan, her white garments flowing like mist. Fishermen heard her sobs near the lake, yet when they searched, they found nothing but cold air and ripples in the water, as if something unseen had just passed by. One terrifying account tells of a priest who followed her cries into a sacred temple. As he stepped inside, the torches flickered and died, leaving him in total darkness. Then, a voice not human, not entirely of this world, whispered in his ear. "They are coming. The blood of my children will run in rivers." The priest fled in terror. Weeks later, Hernan Cortes and his men arrived, and the empire fell, La Llorona in modern times. Even now, long after the Aztecs vanished, the pre-Hispanic Llorona has never left. Her ghost still wanders the canals of Xochimilco, her sobs still echo through the ruins of ancient temples. Some say she appears as a shadowy figure, weeping at the edge of the water. Others have seen her reflection in the lake, even when no one is there. There are even stories from modern-day Mexico City of people hearing her chilling cries near the oldest parts of the city, where the ruins of Tenochtitlan still lie beneath the streets. Those who hear her voice are cursed, for she is still searching for her lost children. And if you listen too closely, she may mistake you for one of them. La Monja Sangrienta, the bloody nun. The bell tower stood silent. No wind blew through the decayed stone walls, yet the air inside the abandoned convent felt thick, suffocating. The faded murals of saints and angels seemed to have cracks like open wounds, their once serene faces now distorted by time or something far worse. It is here, in this forgotten place, that she walks, the bloody nun. The cursed legend of La Monja Sangrienta. The tale begins in 17th century Spain, in a convent where a young nun named Sister Maria took her vows. She was said to be beautiful and devout, but beneath her holy exterior was a heart burning with forbidden passion. She fell in love with a nobleman, a man who promised to take her away from the convent's walls. Together, they planned to escape one moonless night, but he never came. Betrayed, humiliated, and filled with despair, Sister Maria's devotion turned to rage. She abandoned her prayers, wandering the convent halls with empty eyes and shaking hands. Some say she whispered to herself, her words curses against God and man alike. One night, the other nuns awoke to the sound of a scream, raw, anguished, inhuman. They rushed to the chapel, only to find Sister Maria standing before the altar, her white habit drenched in blood. She had stabbed herself through the heart, yet before she died, she laughed. "I will never leave this place," she whispered, her lips stretching into a grotesque smile. And so, she never did. The haunting in Spain. For centuries after her death, pilgrims and travelers who stayed in the convent reported hearing strange noises. Heavy footsteps echoing through empty hallways, faint weeping that turned into laughter. A shadow in the shape of a woman in a nun's habit, her face hidden until she turned, revealing hollow black eyes and blood dripping from her chest. Some claimed that if you looked into a mirror at midnight within the convent, you would see her standing behind you, her mouth moving silently, as if whispering a prayer that no god would ever hear. Fear spread, and eventually, the convent was abandoned, left to crumble beneath the weight of its unholy curse. But legends do not stay buried. La Monja Sangrienta in Japan, the new haunting. In modern Japan, urban legends have revived the tale of the Bloody Nun. No one knows how the curse crossed oceans, but some believe it traveled through objects taken from the ruined convent: a piece of stained glass, an old rosary, a diary with pages missing. These items, now scattered across the world, seem to bring strange occurrences wherever they go. In Tokyo, a group of college students visited an abandoned church for a thrill. One of them, a skeptic, mocked the legend, saying, "If she's real, let her show herself." That night, he woke up to find a figure in a nun's habit standing at the foot of his bed. When he turned on the light, there was nothing. But in the mirror, he saw her reflection still standing there, smiling. In Kyoto, a woman purchased an antique prayer book from a foreign seller. She often heard pages turning by themselves at night. One evening, she opened the book and found a message scrawled in blood-red ink. "Vows are never broken." That was the last night she ever stayed in that house. In Osaka, security footage from a deserted monastery caught a shadowy figure walking between the pews at noon, moving slowly, deliberately. When the guards checked the building, there was no one inside. But in the air, they swore they could smell blood. The warning: it is said that if you dream of the Bloody Nun, she has marked you. If she is crying, you are safe for now. If she is smiling, she has already entered your world. And if she speaks your name, then your fate has been sealed. La Mulata de Córdoba, the witch who vanished. Córdoba, Veracruz, a city drenched in history and shadowed by whispers of the supernatural. Among its many legends, none is more chilling than that of La Mulata de Córdoba, a woman whose beauty and mysterious abilities sealed her fate. The enigmatic woman. During the colonial era, a woman of mixed Spanish and African descent resided in Córdoba. She was breathtakingly beautiful, her skin glowing like polished mahogany, her eyes dark as the night sea. Yet, it was not her beauty that made people fear her, it was her knowledge. She spoke of herbs that could cure any illness. She whispered of the stars and how they foretold the future. She never aged, never fell ill, and seemed to know the deepest secrets of those around her. People began to murmur, "She is not like us. She knows things no woman should. She must be a witch." In a time where fear dictated justice, those whispers became accusations. The trial, the Spanish Inquisition, always hungry for heretics, took notice. One night, armed men stormed her modest home, dragging her through the streets. They found no cauldrons, no spellbooks, just dried herbs and celestial charts. Yet, to the inquisitors, it was enough. The impossible escape. Guards whispered of strange happenings in her cell, glowing lights, hushed voices where there should be silence. One night, as the jailer approached her cell with his lantern, he froze. She was standing before the stone wall, drawing something with a piece of charcoal. A ship, detailed, precise, almost lifelike. "What are you doing?" he barked. She turned to him, her dark eyes shimmering in the dim light. "Sailing away," she said simply. The jailer laughed at her madness, but then the ship moved, its sails rippled, as if caught in an unseen wind. The waves beneath it crashed against the stone wall. The jailer stumbled back as La Mulata stepped into the drawing. Before he could react, she was gone. The cell was empty. Only the ship remained, forever etched onto the cold prison wall. Echoes in the present. Centuries have passed, yet La Mulata de Córdoba is still seen. In the prison, visitors claim to see a shadowy figure near the wall where the ship was drawn. Some hear the distant sound of waves in the silence. On the streets, there are reports of a woman in colonial clothing walking alone at night, only to vanish when approached. Near the ports, sailors speak of a mysterious woman offering safe passage, her voice like the wind, until they realize she has no shadow. Is she still fleeing her captors, or is she waiting, watching, for someone to take her place? La Planchada, the Iron Lady, in the dimly lit halls of old hospitals, where the scent of antiseptic lingers and the sound of distant monitors beeping echoes through the corridors, some patients whisper of a nurse unlike any other. She moves silently, her uniform perfectly pressed, her presence eerily calm. Those who are sickest, those on the brink of death, sometimes wake to find her standing by their bedside. She adjusts their blankets, checks there for drips, and whispers, "Descansa, to do estar bien," Rest, everything will be fine. And by morning they recover. But when they ask the hospital staff about the kind nurse in the old-fashioned uniform, they are met with confused stares. No nurse like that works here. They have just been visited by La Planchada, the Ironed Lady. The tragic tale of La Planchada. Long ago, in Mexico, there was a nurse named Eulalia. She was young, beautiful, and dedicated, always wearing her uniform flawlessly ironed, a sign of her discipline and care. She fell deeply in love with a handsome doctor who charmed her with sweet words and promises of marriage. But it was all a lie. One day, while she was preparing for their wedding, she received news that shattered her heart. He had left with another woman. Devastated, Eulalia's once kind heart turned cold. She continued working at the hospital, but her soul was empty. Patients once comforted by her presence now feared her icy demeanor. Neglect took root. One night, a patient under her care died due to her negligence. The guilt consumed her. She fell into a deep sickness, her body weakening as she lay on her own hospital bed, surrounded by the very walls she had once walked with pride. Her last breath was a whisper of regret. And when she died, she did not find peace. A ghost who seeks redemption. Since her death, La Planchada has been seen all over Mexico and beyond. Hospitals, old and new, report sightings of a mysterious nurse who tends to the ill, ensuring they receive the care she failed to provide in life. But not all who encounter her are saved. Some claim that if she touches you with her cold hands, she takes more than just your pain, she takes your soul. Patients who ignored her warnings have been found dead the next morning, their bodies strangely unmarked, as if they simply stopped living. Others report waking up unable to move, feeling the weight of her presence pressing down on their chest. In some hospitals, nurses working the graveyard shift hear the rustling of a skirt, the faint clinking of medical tools, but when they turn, no one is there. Her legend has even spread to Japan, where she has reportedly appeared in old hospitals, walking the halls, her shadow stretching unnaturally long under the flickering fluorescent lights. Some say she is drawn to places where patients are suffering, always searching for a way to atone for her sins. But what happens if she finds you unworthy? Would you dare to look into her cold, lifeless eyes and find out? Los Aluxes, the haunting guardians of the jungle. The jungle is alive. Its shadows move even when the wind is still. The trees whisper, speaking in voices too ancient to understand. And sometimes, deep in the underbrush, something watches. Los Aluxes, small, mischievous, and sometimes deadly, are the unseen spirits of the land. They are said to be guardians of nature, protecting the sacred forests, caves, and ruins of Mexico. But those who trespass, those who take from the jungle without offering respect, soon find themselves cursed, lost, or worse. The Mayan legend. The ancient Maya people believed that Aluxes were spirits summoned by priests, given life through sacred rituals. They were bound to the land, their duty to protect the fields, the trees, and the hidden places of the world. Farmers would leave offerings, corn, honey, or tobacco to keep them happy. But anger an Alux, and you may never escape the jungle. Stories tell of travelers who laughed at the legends, who walked into the wilderness without respect. They never returned. Their footprints led deep into the jungle, then stopped. No signs of struggle, no bodies, only the faint sound of laughter echoing through the trees. And sometimes, when the villagers listened closely at night, they heard knocking on their windows, but when they looked, nothing was there. Encounters in the modern world. Even today, people claim to see them. Hikers in the Yucatan Peninsula report small shadows darting between trees. Tourists feel cold hands brushing against their skin, but when they turn around, they are alone. At construction sites built too close to sacred Mayan ruins, workers hear childlike voices whispering in the wind, and accidents follow. In one terrifying case, a road was being built through an ancient Mayan site. Machines broke down for no reason. Workers fell sick. The foreman, laughing at the rumors, woke up one night to see a dozen tiny figures staring at him from the foot of his bed. Their eyes glowed like embers. The project was abandoned. Locals say the Aluxes still guard the area, waiting in the shadows, watching those who dare to disturb their land. And if you ever hear tiny footsteps following you in the jungle, don't turn around. Because once you see them, they never let you go.
If you enjoyed today's story, Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel, Mystical Tales, so you won't miss out on more eerie and thrilling tales in the future. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.